I am excited about my guest today. I've got Steve Snider on the show. He is a personal friend, mentor, all that good stuff. So I'm excited to have him on. But before we get to that, if you're watching live on Facebook, you can comment. You can throw us questions. We'll do our best to get to any questions that people have. So feel free to throw those into the comment section if you'd like. If you're watching later on YouTube or listening on Apple Podcasts, you could do me a huge favor and subscribe there. And I would really, really, really appreciate that. Like I said, Steve Snider is my guest today. Steve is somewhat responsible, probably mostly responsible for the church that I lead being in existence today. It goes God, then Steve Snider. And so, that's so if you don't like the well, you can message Steve.
Like me.
If you love it, you can message me and let me know.
Level 5 leadership right there.
There you go. But Steve is, let's see, man, you got a big old resume. Everybody I bring on here does, but you got a big old one. But you started Fellowship Associates in 1999, right?
21 years ago.
Man, so the goal there is planting healthy, vibrant churches that really reach their communities and reach around the world, right?
That's right. Gospel-centered, team-led, elder-led church plants.
Yeah. How many churches have been planted out of Fellowship Associates today? Do you know off the top of your head?
Well, yeah, directly from our residents, it's like 119. But the cool thing is now we get to live through all those church plants, and our heart and goal is to plant planting churches, so that those churches, like your church, are reproducing. And so it's in the several hundreds that we get to be a part of in that way.
That's great. That's awesome. Yeah, I know that you guys have had a huge influence. One of the coolest compliments I ever heard about Fellowship Associates was my first week at seminary. I went to seminary after I planted a church because that's how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, you always go by the book, Matt Patrick, by the book.
Yeah, right. And the president of the seminary came to me and he said, "You were a part of Fellowship Associates." I said, "Yeah." And he said, "In eternity someday, that'll be the day that we see that Fellowship Associates had more impact on the gospel going forward in particularly America than any other organization that I can think of." So that was pretty cool to be there. And I was like, tons of pressure. I felt like to be a great student after that compliment. But
no, I don't feel any pressure now either.
I know, right? I remember
when you told me that. That blows me away. That's crazy.
Yeah, man, it's wild. Steve, you also started Life Champ Sports. You're a partner with D1 Sports as well. Man,
Life Champs is a youth sports program here in Central Arkansas. That sports was such a big part of my life and influence, and we just wanted some positive place for kids to go be a part of team sports. So we started that, and then D1 Sports Training and Therapy is kind of an athletic-based training deal that I own a couple of those. So yes,
nice. And
I like to do different things like you do.
Yeah, I've got a problem. But let's see. So you have been married since 1987, is that right? To Beth?
33 years to Beth. Yes, she's put up with me that long.
And 3 kiddos, right?
3 kids, all getting married this year. So what a great year to have 3 weddings.
Yeah, right. Holy
Crazy.
Cow!
Yeah,
well, Steve, I'm excited to have you. You're my personal mentor. It meant a ton to me. And I couldn't think anybody that I'd rather have on it, particularly for this show, coming out of a week of a lot of heaviness, a lot of difficulty, because I would call you an expert in the topic of emotional intelligence, and particularly to leaders and what it takes to kind of go the distance in leadership and what that looks like. And a big part of your residency is honestly assessing leaders and giving them the tools that they need. Because I know I showed up to Fellowship Associates. I rolled into Little Rock, Arkansas. And that's a long story of why my hand was bandaged and I had a bruise on the side of my head.
Can I tell that story? I mean, you're this young guy. We've been around 10 years now. We're getting a lot of guys interested. You're this young guy who had not been to seminary, and you said, "I want to do the residency." And I liked you. We hit it off. We had some great meals together.
Yeah.
And I said, "Man, I don't think you're ready. Go do this and go do that." You wouldn't go away. You would not go away. And I don't know if you remember the lunch we had with Ed Ligon who was on our board.
Yeah.
He said, "I kind of like this guy." maybe we should take a risk on him. So we took the leap, and so glad. You've been amazing.
Yeah, I remember calling you and just being like, realizing, well, I'm going to really regret it if I don't push on this. And I think I said something to the effect of, it doesn't matter if you have me, you better have a desk ready because I'm showing up in the fall.
Yeah. And you showed up with a bandaged hand after getting in a fight the night before that you showed up in Little Rock.
That is true. That is true. That
is a true story. I still kind of wonder if it's a true story.
It's a true story. The non-true story for those that have been around Fellowship know that Caldwell, who is at Fellowship Associates, his version of that story has grown by leaps and bounds, but that did happen. So
you put your hand through a windshield or a window to protect some girl from her boyfriend.
I tried to put my hand through a windshield to do that, and I failed miserably at doing that, but ultimately did protect the girl. So anyway,
I said at least we got a fighter here.
Yeah, there you go, man. There you go. Hey, Steve, why don't you take a minute real quick, share the journey of Fellowship Associates and really what you guys set out to do and why, and particularly talk a little bit about why things like EQ, emotional intelligence, are so important in what you guys do.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we started in 1999, and that really has been an evolution. We started more like an MBA leadership course. We were teaching leadership skills and development and really focused on that kind of leadership. And then through developments in my own life and Bill Wellens, my partner, his life, just learning ourselves how disconnected from our own hearts that we were through some mentors that we had and some counselors that we brought in. It just really was a great awakening and awareness for us. This is what we need to be pouring into leaders.
Yeah.
This is what's missing. There are plenty of leadership courses out there, but there are too many leaders that are just leading what we like to say from their head and not from their hearts. We talk about integrated leadership, a leader who's learned to lead from their head and their heart, which is a whole different kind of leader. We also call those leaders inside out leaders. They lead. They're able to lead from who they really are, not who they think they're supposed to be.
Yeah. No, that's good.
And for the health of a leader long term, we've learned it is essential for the health of the leader, for the health of the family, for the health of the church.
Yeah. I remember getting there, and I was a mess when you guys got me. I was a project, still am. Not that I'm not a mess, but I'll never forget. You guys basically, it was like day 1 or 2, and this is back. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Fellowship Associates and the residency program and how it works, you used to move to Little Rock if you weren't from there, and then you'd go out. Now, tell people what it does now.
Yeah, now we do it. The guys stay where they are, where they're planting their church, and we bring them in 2 or 3 times a month for a 2 or 3 day intensive.
Yeah. So I was the last class that moved to Little Rock.
You were? Yeah, that was 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. And I got there, and I will never forget, you guys listed out a bunch of pastors that were famous and all the stuff that young, dumb pastors want to be. Yeah. And you said, Matt, that's who you are, personality wise. And then you started pulling out the names of all these guys who had blown up their lives and hurt themselves in multitudes of ways. And they said, and this is also who you are. And our job is to drill down on that and help you get some peace with that. I don't know do you remember that conversation? I don't know if you did.
Yeah. This is where you could be very well headed if you don't embrace this year and go deep with us.
Yeah. And I did. I dove in.
You did.
And I think you guys do something unique, and I'd love to hear you talk about this. And I'm going a little off script here because I'm just thinking about it. I think you guys did something unique with me, and I'm sure you do this with other guys. But my journey, I think what I took away from Fellowship was a lot of things, but one of the biggest things was I'll never forget, actually, driving back from Memphis. We were at, I see JB's on here watching. We're actually driving back from his church. And I said, you know what, maybe I don't need to be a lead pastor. Maybe I could just be on a staff or be a second, in charge kind of guy or do something else. And you didn't stop the car, but you basically turned around and said, now you're ready. Now you're definitely ready.
Now you're ready.
And I was like, what? You been trying to do this, and so actually
Now
being
you've
able,
let go. Now you've let go of the title, and you're
yeah,
ready to dig in and do the work. Yeah.
yeah. To talk about that, why is that important for? I mean, really anybody in leadership at some level.
Anybody in leadership. Here's the deal, and it took me a long time to learn this. You know, we come into this world, and we've got our minds and our wills and our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
We think with our mind, we do with our will, and we feel with our hearts. Well, what we learn when we're young and we're growing up in this world, the world gives us all this messaging of this is who you need to be. This is what you need to do. This is what you should look like to be meaningful, to have value in this world. Even for pastors, for those who are living their lives to bless others, there's still that image that we have of this successful pastor, that unsuccessful pastor. So there are these images and these visions of who we're supposed to be. And it's usually around what we have, what our title is, where we live, how we look, what our bank account looks like, how many people are in our church, how many, the numbers. And so we get that vision, and we can so easily create our what we call our false self, and learn to live out our lives in our heads, what we think and believe, and then in what we're doing through our wills. And oftentimes that requires leaving our hearts behind. And that's not how we were made to be. We were made to be in relationship. We're spiritual, emotional, and spiritual beings made to live fully in authentic relationships with others, and that requires emotions and feelings and connecting in that way. And if a pastor's not developed there, they're going to be stunted. They're going to be unable to deal with the deeper, harder, darker things over the long term.
Yeah. No, totally true. That emotional stuntedness is something that I think most guys I talk to that are pastors, especially, or ladies that are leaders or whoever that might be, is leadership's hard, right? Like it's not easy to lead. It's not easy to make the call
No.
and to do the things that we're supposed to do. And if we don't know, we're not able to build off of what you're saying. And what I learned from FA in many respects is if we're not able to label what's happening internally and why we're doing that, then we're in trouble. I'll share a story. I remember we were eating barbecue in Little Rock, because that's what I feel like I did for a year.
Yeah, we ate a lot.
We were at Whole Hog, and Brandon Washington, who is a friend and was also a resident with me the year I was there, we got into a fight over football, and I was teasing him about how terrible I thought the Cowboys were and all this kind of stuff. And I can't remember what I said. I said something, but you just like stopped it, and you're like, "What was that right there? Like, why did you feel the need to do that?" And you're like, "You'll do that in your leadership." And I was like, "I do that all the time in my leadership. I just pick fights with people." You
picked a lot of fights that year with Brandon. I had to save your life several times.
You probably did save my life. I'm scrappy, but
you are scrappy. But no, you're right, man. You were a fight picker, and that was how you you kind of I don't know if that was part of your false self, feeling significant or tough or strong or something like that. But you did do that. But then you did some really hard work that year, and to do this work that we're talking about, to go inside to your inner being, to your heart, to your soul, where all those emotions are oftentimes buried. It's hard work to do that, and it's hard to do alone. You need to do it in community, and ideally in community with somebody that can help guide you through it.
Yeah. Steve, change the topics a little bit here. In regards to EQ stuff, what are you guys looking for? I mean, what are you looking for in a planter? Because you're getting a lot of raw guys. You're getting disgruntled pastors, coming out of maybe a work situation they didn't want to. Like that, I don't know. You have a wide range of. I mean, you've had really, really smart guys like Hunter Beaumont and Eric Mason come through the program. And then you've had guys like me. Right. So what are you guys looking for at Fellowship Associates?
Yeah, early on, it's funny because we were looking for the champion. We were looking for the guy that made straight A's, that was on student government, the captain of the football team, but not bad things. That's who I was. That's who I was brought up to be, the champion, the Christian. champion, by the way, that has it all together, right?
Yeah.
Or at least on the outside. And,
right.
That's part of what we're talking about. None of us have it all together. Even pastors and elders, we don't have it all together. And so we were looking for that champion, man, the guy that had done it and proven it and was going to come in, and we were going to teach him how to do it bigger and better and change the world. And so there's not all bad in that, but that can set a guy up to think he's Superman and all things to all people. And unfortunately, too often in ministry, we see guys crash that are set up for that. Super skilled guys. They've got the skill. They've got the pass. So it kind of changed a little bit as we changed. And we started looking for guys, as you said, with EQ, with emotional intelligence. I like emotional healthiness even better. I like that phrase because it feels like it's speaking more to the heart, not just figuring things out, but a willingness to go deep and like we said, inside. So, the one thing we look at is the past. Obviously, it is the best predictor of the future. So we're looking at how this guy's led in the past, but we turn away a lot of super skilled guys now. We're looking for a younger man who wants to be transformed into an integrated leader and is willing to do the hard inner work to transform. We want somebody who has a teachable spirit that wants for some older men to get down in their stuff in some many uncomfortable ways, as you can attest.
Yeah.
In a setting where you've got to have trust, because in most cases we create crisis for the guys in the residency to see how they're going to respond, to hopefully help them let go of everything they're hanging on to that they're wanting to represent that they are, and get down to the bottom of their soul, to their real self, what's really going on in there. So we want a guy that's teachable like that. I like to have a guy, we used to get younger guys. I like to have some guys that have been knocked around a little bit. They've endured crisis and they've come out of it. As you know, as well as anybody, planting a church is going to be crisis centered oftentimes.
For sure.
And as a leader, you got to know how to navigate that. So best we can in interviews and, talking to references, guys that have had some experience with that. Obviously, good communicator, that's important. Obviously, there's some obvious things, to be a church planner, you need some sense or level of entrepreneurial spirit. You're doing one of the most difficult things, I think, that can be done in the world. You're starting a business, you're raising money, you're communicating regularly, you're gathering people, you're creating a vision, you're sharing that vision in a way that can understand it, and you're giving hope to people. You're doing all those things. So you're doing one of the most challenging things I think a young man can do. So you got to be called to it as well. As you know, I try to talk guys out of planning churches because if I can talk you out of it, you don't need to do it.
Yeah, right.
You're gonna get knocked on your butt pretty quick.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good. Yeah, so many. I mean, I think the idea, particularly in the last 20 years, church planting has been made fairly sexy. Yes. That it's a cool thing to do.
Cool thing to do.
And it's not very sexy. No. Right? Like it's like if sexy is being broke and and trying to convince people to come to your living room. I mean, I think of our early days of our church. I'm like, I can't believe anybody came, so it really does speak to what you guys try to instill so much is it has to be something so much more than whether you got a facility or how great your band is. And while all that stuff, I'm not a hater on that. Like I think we do a good job in those areas and those things matter. You're at Fellowship. They do a phenomenal job of that. Like the kids area at Fellowship Bible in Little Rock is the best I've ever seen, Yeah, but it's not, that's not what gets a church going. Right? Like that stuff.
Man, it's hard work. It's hard work. It's dedicated leadership. It's relentless pursuit of having the same conversation over and over and over and over and over, and being used to the feeling that can we afford to get through next month? And it's building a team. You know how passionate about team I am.
Yep.
I don't want guys to be out there trying to do this by themselves, which is another danger in planting churches or leading in ministry. So you got to put together a team. You've got to foster that team. You've got to create the chemistry. There are just so many moving parts going on. There's really nothing sexy about it other than, I guess, to say that you did it. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's hard work.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
I remember you guys had me come down to fellowship to help out after I'd been out for several years. I think it was Eddie Williams.
A couple of years ago.
And he goes, and he's pretty cool. I mean, he played in the NFL.
Yeah.
He's kind of got that. So he's like the coolest church planter I've met,
Yeah.
And he goes, how is being a pastor ever cool? He's like, you guys haven't been around cool people.
I'm going from the NFL to being a pastor. Let's talk about cool.
Yeah, right. And I was supposed to be there teaching, and I think I learned more that day, because I think we do get caught up in that, right? And what does that do? What do you think that does to guys when they get wrapped up in the being the guy, being cool, having the biggest church? Maybe I'll get to write a book. Maybe I'll get to be on speak at a conference. I don't know. Conference speaking is kind of the weird idol of the church planter in a weird. It was for me. I don't know about other guys.
Well, everything you're talking about, and there can be good in all those things, but everything you're talking about, if you don't have that humble spirit, if you haven't learned to be an inside out leader so that you're truly being who you are, not who Matt Chandler is or Mark Driscoll or John Piper or whoever, or Andy Stanley or Matt Patrick or whoever you hold yourself up to be.
Nobody's holding themselves up to be me.
Then it's about ego.
Yeah.
Just like anything else, it's about ego. It's about me. It's more about what those people think about me than me being myself to bless others.
Yeah.
Being Christ-like, and it's easy to fall in that trap. And I tell I came out to your church last summer to Boulder, and Beth and I had a blast out there, and I got to speak to your leaders. And I told them, we talked a lot about this. I told them, yes, you're in ministry. Yes, that means your heart's in a great place, hopefully, and that you're living for the Lord and you're giving your life away and all those admirable things. But nobody, here's the trap. Nobody is more susceptible to what you're talking about than you in ministry, because you're getting up in front of people and you can get so caught up in what they think about you and the compliments they give you about your sermons or not. And let that drive everything about who you are in ministry, rather than truly loving on the souls of people and giving them hope and modeling Christ likeness in an honest, broken, helpless way. One of my church planners said recently we were talking about doing some things. He's talking about an event. He said, I can't have an event unless I know I'm going to do it perfectly. Everybody's got to be walking away from that event going, wow. And I just kind of stopped him. I said, let me ask you a question. Could it be that the greatest gift you could give your people is to screw up and let them see you, how you respond to that, and to see that you're not perfect, that you're just like them, that your ego's not so big that all this is about you impressing them. So it's a huge trap in ministry to go there. And again, it's another reason I'm passionate about humble men who are teachable, that want to be taught, humble men who want to pursue self-awareness, because that means they want to see their blind spots. They want to see where they're not all this and all that. And a guy who is desiring team in his life because he's recognizing I'm not great at all things and I need peers in my life that can do things better than I can. And I think that is at least in some way, self-protective of that.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm glad I record these because I'm going to need to go back and re-listen to all that goodness over and over again to remind myself of that. So, man, I appreciate you sharing that. So let's I know one of my favorite things about you, Steve, is you're not afraid to go deep. And so I'm going to jump into the deep end a little bit with you. And this has been a hellacious year for you. It's been a hellacious year for me. We were talking before we got on the show. I've got some sickness in my family that I'm dealing with. You've got that. You've lost family members recently, and all your kids are getting married this year, which is a win, which is great. But there's a mixture of emotions, and I was just thinking, even after this past week with my good friend, and I know you knew him, Darren passing, and what all is going on with that, and how that is. I mean, this season, more than any in my short life that I can think of, has caused me just to step back and just go, what is going on inside me? And I haven't cried as much as I have in the last, I was telling somebody today, last time I cried this month, I was with you in fellowship, and you were grinding me every day. And so it's a hard season, and you're leading through a hard season. So just share a little bit. I'd love to hear your heart on that a little bit.
Yeah, it has been a hard season. Losing my brother 5 years ago with young kids, and my dad recently, and Beth's my wife's mom's really struggling. And then, just this environment that we're all living in right now as well. And it's felt dark. It's felt hard. A lot of things have. And I'm thankful for this. My old self, and I say my old self, my unintegrated self, myself, my hard charging champion, have it all together self, would feel the pressure to still have it all together in the midst of this. And there's no telling where that takes me. I'm so thankful that I've been able to process enough and let go enough to not have to have it all figured out, to not have to make sense of it all. I'm going to tell you how huge that is in my life, Matt. Part of my Christian journey was figuring it all out. Yeah. Figuring God out, figuring the why of this out, and having the Bible knowledge, which again is not a bad thing, but that was the journey. And my heart, I'd left my heart behind too often. I had not been taught how to go down into the shadow of my heart, the feelings of shame and the fear that I had, that I'm not this perfect champion that everybody can look up to, and that I do have anger, that it's telling me something real important about what's going on in me, and that I need to understand it and listen to it. Our feelings are tools that give us this beautiful messaging and really help us get a glimpse, if we'll sit in them and deal with them healthily, of our needs. And ultimately, all of them point us to our need for Christ, that we're helpless. And so thankfully, I've been given those tools to better sit in my feelings, to not try to run out of them, and just feel them, and ask the question, what does this mean about me and what I need and who I need? And what is God teaching me in this? And I don't have to walk out the front door having everything together. And it can be a beautiful, hard and difficult, yes, but it can be a beautiful thing to see God work in your marriage through that, with your kids. Let them, see you, dad hurting, and just invites God in. So I'm thankful for that in this season.
Yeah. What would you say? I mean, going through that, you use the word thankfulness a lot in there. What does that do to us when we're thankful in the midst of a time when it's thankful? That seems counterintuitive, right?
Let me tell you, Let me tell you something funny about myself that I think will be telling to what your question is. I don't think I've shared this with you. Used to, the old Steve will say, I had a word on my calendar every day that came up at 6 a.m. And that word was boom, exclamation point. Let's go boom the world. Let's go boom this and boom that. Steve's in town.
All right.
Now the first thing that pops up on my phone at 6 a.m. in the morning is be grateful. Let go. Breathe. Trust. Those are the words that come up now. So just beginning my day with those words, of the word of gratefulness, thankfulness, it just sets your mind and your heart in a perspective of all that we do have to be thankful for. because we do have a lot. And Jesus did tell us this is going to be tough.
Yeah.
He said, there are going to be obstacles. This is going to be tough, but take courage. I've overcome this. And something else that's helped me a lot, 2 Corinthians 3, talks about reading the word. I think that's right. And how our heart, the veil of our heart can be covered, even reading God's word.
Yeah.
But when one turns to the Lord, and the way I see that is turns to the Lord in gratefulness and thankfulness, it's transforming. So that's been huge in this time for me.
Yeah, that's great. I could see you having Boom on your calendar.
Yeah.
Because when Steve Snider's in town, everybody does know that Steve Snider is in town.
I don't know about that, but I sure wanted him to.
Yeah, I know. Well, I like the Steve that we have today. Talk a little bit about this, and let's dive into this, because I know most of the people watching are pastors that are hopping on this stuff or work in ministry or something. What's the opportunity for the pastor emotionally in this season that we all find ourselves in? Maybe for some it's not a physical suffering like we've seen like people close to us go through, but it's just the fact that they can't meet with their church. What's the opportunity there for the pastor in this season?
Opportunity for himself personally, or with him and his people?
Whatever you want, man.
I'll answer both of those, because my brain kind of went both places. Opportunity is take advantage of this space to grow in this. There's some great books you can read. Invite other guys into your life to just start sharing about, more about yourself. I mean, we need that anyway, but if we've got some space to do that, man, take advantage of that. Go through a book like Voice of the Heart by Chip Dodd, where he explains all the different feelings and what they're telling you about yourself, and go through that with a group of guys. Go through our Authentic Manhood curriculum. Shameless pitch there. But we take guys into their hearts. We try to take guys into their hearts. Pastors need to be doing that work. Their job needs to include doing that work, not just leading others through that, or there's gonna be a bad ending, or not. You're not going to be as good as you could be for your people.
Yeah.
So that personally, and that kind of goes without saying, but men need encouragement, and pastors need encouragement in that. That's one. But for your people, what we all need right now is people. We need hope. We've never been in a place like this where everything is so unknown, and it's a new world in so many ways. And I don't know when I can do that or if I can do that. And I've lost my job, and the virus is all around. It's scary. It's fearful. It's so many things. Our people need hope that there's a bigger picture than what we can see. They need to hear that. They need to be reminded of that. And you're in a beautiful place as their pastor, as their shepherd, as their leader, to offer that regularly.
That's good. Yeah. The message of hope never gets old, right? Like I've heard it said, if you are preaching to a hurting people, you'll never lack a crowd to preach to.
That's right. Everybody's hurting.
Yeah.
They may be acting like they're not, but that they are.
I'm just curious, just kind of jumping off of that a little bit. For pastors that are hurting, a lot of times, like we're supposed to give hope. What are we supposed to do? Like, where do pastors go? Talk about that a little bit. Where do leaders go? Because it can feel like it can be scary. I think this is something I'm not an expert on anything, but I think it's maybe one of the dangers in evangelicalism is that our leaders are kind of taught that you don't. If you like, we're supposed to be open, and your past is your past. But if you're the leader and you share something, and if it's dark, there's not a lot of, I don't sense generally a lot of grace. That I'm thankful to be in the church that I'm in with a team that's very committed to that, but I don't sense that in a lot of places. How would you recommend a leader to be able to find hope themselves?
Whether we're a pastor, whether we're a businessman, whether we're a businesswoman, whether we're a coach, I don't care what we are. We're human beings, and we're emotional and spiritual beings made to live
Mm.
in authentic and real community, healthy community. We're relational beings. And if we don't have that as a pastor, it's going to be unhealthy. It's going to be unhealthy quick. You've got to have a safe place where you can share that dark thing. You've got to, or it's gonna be so unhealthy. And if you're in a setting where you don't have that, pastor, make that your very first priority. Go find it. And again, I mean, everybody laughs at me because I pound the table talking about team. One thing healthy team gives you is it can have that built-in, authentic partnership relationally where you're doing this together. And I know how hard it is, and you know how hard it is, so we can be honest in it together and show each other the grace we need to help us hopefully grow through those dark times. We have to have it.
Yeah. So you would tell the leader, risk it. It's worth risking putting yourself out there.
Not to maybe to the whole world.
Yeah.
There's appropriateness in that. There are people that aren't ready to hear that. There are people that are looking at Matt Patrick and expecting you to have it all together. But there's something beautiful, I think, even to that person, to let them see that you don't.
Yeah.
Again, that you're helpless just like they are, and that you need redemption just like they do. There's a beautiful thing in that. But no, not everything, not your deepest, darkest things that may throw shock and awe into the body, wondering if you're even qualified to do ministry, but a safe place where you could say, I'm struggling. I'm struggling. And I don't know. You knew Darren Patrick well. Y'all were good friends.
Yeah.
I just barely knew him. I don't know if he had that or not. I wonder, maybe you know if he did, but what happened, it made me wonder if he truly had a safe place, and maybe there was a lot more going on. But man, I desire that for every pastor, because every one of us need it.
Yeah. Yeah, because leadership can be one of the most lonely places. Being a pastor can be insanely lonely, and we aren't meant to carry that alone. And even I think you're right on, Steve, especially on the part about appropriately sharing, even with your congregation. On a Sunday, I had never done this before. I was preaching, and like everybody else, I'm preaching what we're doing live stream, but it's to a camera, and like what I'm doing here, but there's not even you looking back at me. It's just me and this camera. And I went to go share about Darren because he's on our board. So our church needed to know something, and I couldn't get it together, man. Like I could not and I was so it was an interesting emotional response because I hit the end right there. It was like that moment. I was like, oh, this is happening now. And I realized I couldn't stop it. And my first thought that went into my head is, what are these people going to think of me?
Get it together.
Yeah. Right. And I was like sitting there and I was like, you've got to get it together. And I went back and I watched that sermon, and I was a little embarrassed because I started trying to make jokes to get out of it. Because that's what I do. I crack jokes. Right. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to make jokes to get out of it. And to my surprise, and not really, I know my people. The amount of people that reached out to me afterwards just to make sure I was okay, and how much they actually appreciated a level of vulnerableness and authenticity was strong. There was nobody that was like, that was really uncomfortable that our pastor just ugly cried on camera.
Yeah, but let me tell you what, you know what you did? You gave them a gift. You gave them a gift that you're like they are, and that the emotions that they're feeling like that in their everyday lives, you gave them more permission to feel it. Because you felt it, and you did something else just then. I'm proud of you. Even when you explained that situation to me, you recognized that you started telling jokes to get out of it.
Yeah.
And what I would hope you would learn from that is you don't have to try to get out of it. Let it do its work in your soul.
Yeah.
Give that gift to your people.
Yeah, man. It's wild times, and I just hope anybody who's leading anything, or whether that's just a mom trying to lead the family at home, and kids running around or whatever that might be, that we're creating some space to, as you said at the beginning, feel our feelings a whole lot more. So
hey, let me tell you what I love real quick. I love looking over here in the chat room, and I see some of our guys. Yeah. Some of our boys, Tyler and Byron and Jeff and Chris and Sam and JB. It's just awesome. Yeah. See those names popping up.
And it's fun. It is fun. The kind of the class, I can go anywhere. If there's an FA guy,
Yeah.
I trust you because I know
That's
that
kind of cool.
Steve, Bill, and you've probably been forced to smoke a cigar with Rick Caldwell at some point, and so I know there's something there that we got in common.
Yes, for sure.
Let me give you one more question and we'll wrap this
All right.
up. We usually go 40, 45 minutes, but
Okay.
let me give you one more. The thing that's been on my mind with all of this going on is I feel like everything just got amplified, turned up. Any insecurities, any fears, it's like a light just got put on it. And that's what pressure does, right? It brings it out. Like when somebody gets married, it doesn't cover up the problems between the couple. It actually intensifies it. And the situation we find ourselves in is kind of intensified stuff. But I'm thinking we're going to come out of this one way or another, and we're going to go back to some form of a normal existence at some point. I don't presume to know what that means or what that looks like, but what lessons can we learn now that we need to take with us into the future and not just forget it and kind of put it under the bed like it's an old photo album and be like, remember that we can take with us as we journey through the rest of our lives?
Yeah, for me, and it seems probably for most everybody, is that we're not in control. We live our lives in the Western culture so much like we are in control of our careers and just in everything in different ways. But we are not in control. This thing is bigger than us, and so to learn to let go of control and hopefully learn to trust more, to let go more, and also that. We also can get really caught up in our comfort, and this has taken some of our comforts of life away, so to speak, for a lot of people. And so maybe to learn to let go of those idols of comfort and control that can be front and center in our everyday lives in America. So that's what I'm hoping for myself.
That's good. Thank you for that. Well, Steve, this has been a lot of fun. I miss doing this. I wish I could do this every day. I just publicly thank you guys for all that you've done in my life, and getting to be in the office with you every day for almost a year. It was one of the most fun years of my life, even though I probably drove you all nuts. But
yes, you did.
I know I did, and it's an honor to have you on here. Steve, why don't you take a second, share about Authentic Manhood 33 FA, anything that you think people need to know?
Yeah. So we do have the church planting arm of what we do. The other thing we do is we love encouraging men, because we are men, and we don't have all the answers. We don't pretend to, but we love encouraging them from Scripture, from the stories and the lives of other men, from God. Darren Patrick is in our curriculum, and he talks about a man and his story and the importance of knowing your own story. You're in our curriculum 33.
All I do is crack a joke. I make fun of you.
You did.
That's the only slot that I made.
About the old man. But you made it. You're in there. But yeah, we love encouraging men with this video curriculum that we call 33, this series. And we call it 33 because our model and our inspiration for manhood is Jesus and his 33 years on earth. So we point to Jesus a lot, and the model that he is in so many ways. And we just love encouraging guys. We have a volume on marriage. We have one on fatherhood. We have one on a man in his work. We have one on a man in his story, kind of the things we've been talking about. A man in his traps, which is really important, the things that can trip us up in life, the idols. And all of them, the videos are only like 30 minutes long each. There are only 6 sessions in each volume, so it's so easy to do. But man, to grab a set of the videos and get a handful of guys to go through that together can take you to the places. If you'll let it, you have to be willing to be open and vulnerable with other guys. But it can help take you. It can be your guide to the place we're talking about. Integrated, to become an integrated, what we call authentic man. Yeah,
it's good. What's the website that they'd go to find that?
Yeah, authenticmanhood.com.
Yeah, do it. It'd honestly be great if you are doing stuff digitally. You can download the videos and and guys can take it with them, and you can get on there. I've taken groups of my guys in my church. I don't even know how many times we've gone through different curriculums here at the Well, but I know our guys have gotten a lot out of it, so I highly recommend picking that up and checking all that out. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, Steve, it's been awesome. Everybody watching, thank you for hopping on. All our friends, whether you have some connection to FA or not, it was awesome to have you on here. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on Apple, or subscribe on YouTube, or you can find this on my Instagram TV later as well. So, hey, we love you guys. Just trying to serve everybody out there a little bit, and we'll be back in about a week with another guest I'm working on. I can't reveal it yet. A little surprise, a little tension there, but I got something pretty cool coming up. So I'm pretty excited about that. And Steve, thanks again, man. I love you. You're the best.
Love you too, man. Proud of you for doing this. This is awesome. I'm really enjoying it.
Thanks. See you guys later.